every day of our lives, each one of us breathes 3,000 gallons of air into our lungs to purify our blood and keep us alive. We can't see this air we breathe, only feel it ruffling our hair, or rippling the grass when the wind is blowing. It's apparently without substance, and yet when weighed, we find that we draw 35 pounds of it into our lungs every day, or 7 times the average weight of our daily food and drink. We don't eat dirty food, and to make sure that it's clean and wholesome, we have Acts of Parliament and people to see that these laws are kept. We insist on cleanliness on the farm, in food processing, in shops, and in our homes. Why then should we be content to draw dirty air into our lungs? Just let's see what happens when we do. Here first is the lung of someone who's been breathing clean country air all his life, and the lung is clean and pink, and is like a fine sponge. The lungs of people from industrial cities, however, are black with unburned carbon. The fine sponge is completely broken down and becomes useless for breathing. The owner of this lung, when he died, only had a tiny piece at the bottom left for breathing with. The rest, like a badly run car, was carboned up. 300 years ago, the diarist John Evelyn complained to Charles II about London, that this glorious and ancient city should so wrap her head in clouds of smoke and sulphur, so full of stink and darkness. That stink and darkness has been growing ever since the Industrial Revolution spread it all over Britain. To Manchester, for instance, with its great cotton mills. To Barrow-in-Furness, where the smoke from Bessemer converters mingled with the smoke of ships. And to the smoke from ships and factories was added the smoke from thousands of domestic chimneys, until the myriad of tiny particles loosed into the air grew so intolerable that if all the particles suspended at any one moment in the winter air above the administrative county of London to a height of 325 feet could be collected, they would form a solid block 66 tons in weight. But we'd grown so used to the grime of our cities that it took the disastrous London smog of December 1952, when 4,000 people died in 3 days, to jolt the nation's conscience. The government set up the Beaver Committee to study the problems of air pollution and to recommend action. And here are some of their findings. There can be no doubt that the effect of air pollution on health is wholly bad, whether measured positively in relation to growth, well-being and joy of living, or more negatively in terms of death, disease, and the economic loss which goes with the incapacity to work. Think of a little girl living in a large industrial town. It's August, but nevertheless all around her is the grime from the smoke of winter. Everything she touches will be dirty. The house she lives in will need repainting twice as often as one in the country. Her mother's curtains will constantly need washing, for she can't keep her windows shut all the time. In fact, every day becomes Monday here. No wonder that the Beaver Report tells us that air pollution costs the country as a whole £250 million a year.
Oh, Sylvia.
Which is not surprising when it was calculated that our chimneys throw out 3 million tons of solid matter a year. What about the cost to you personally? Well, in the black areas, your laundry costs half as much again as in the clean areas. 25 million unnecessary pounds a year from your wage packets, and a lot of extra work for housewives. The grime is everywhere. And in case you think that the clean areas escape altogether, the smoke from a big town can drift many miles downwind before it falls, to ruin the washing on a country clothesline. The result of the overwhelming evidence against air pollution produced by the Beaver Report was the Clean Air Act of 1956. At last we'd decided that dirty air was as bad as dirty food. So we became the first country, and so far the only country, to tackle the smoke problem on a national scale. And that inoffensive-looking smoke plume from your chimney was named as one of the main culprits. But can this delightful fire really be a criminal? The flames dance, you're warm and comfortable. And the smoke? Well, of course, there's a little, that's why the chimney's there. The smoke comes out, an innocent plume of grey, and is blown away by the wind. Where's the harm in that? Very little if yours was the only chimney, but it isn't. All around you, other people are sitting by other fires like yours. Your thin grey plume mingles with 1,000 others. The air grows thick. The smoke drifts down into the street outside your window. The sun can hardly penetrate the gloom to the streets, and the rain of smuts begins. It dirties the laundry you've just washed, the house you've just painted, your car, your children's clothes, your children's lungs. It's true that your chimney is not the only culprit. The Beaver Committee found that about half the smoke and nearly all the grit and dust came from industrial chimneys. And now, when you look up at a tall factory chimney, you might see smoke for a short while after the furnaces have been lit, but it soon disappears. Automatic firing is the answer. If the furnace is oil-fired, the oil and air supplies are controlled in exact proportions, and the attendants receive instant warning if any adjustments are needed. If the fuel is coal, then it's fed at a controlled rate by mechanical stokers, which spread it evenly, so that the furnace is at the correct temperature for efficient combustion. And should a fault develop, the attendants can make immediate adjustments to clear it. But all new plant now has to have the most effective machinery available to collect the grit and dust as well, before it can be shot out into the air. And at this power station, a row of 99% efficient electrostatic precipitators are built in below the chimney for this purpose. The dust in the flue gases flowing through the precipitator becomes electrically charged and then collects together, all ready to be shaken off into the huge hoppers below. In these and other ways, industry is already beginning to clear the skies over our cities. This is the smoke haze that still lingers over the black spots. Contrast it with the clean air over the many towering blocks of flats and offices that are altering the skyline of our cities. No smoke, because the furnaces in their basements are scientifically designed. Or again in the potteries, where smoke once poured from every kiln like this, but where more and more kilns are now fired so that they don't make smoke. Nowhere, perhaps, was waste and air pollution more visible than near railway engine sheds and marshalling yards. At one time, steam engines were responsible for more than 1/7 of all the smoke discharged into our atmosphere. And anyone who lived within sight and smell of a great railway terminus knew what that meant in terms of grime and gloom and incessant scrubbing. It's no wonder that some gave up the struggle. But those unhappy days are numbered. Diesel engines and electric trains are replacing the old steamers. And when the modernization is complete, the familiar smoke pall will finally vanish. And those who live nearby will be able to rest from their scrubbing. They will see the sun. Industry is putting its house in order, and now it's up to all of us to do the same. For our chimney, together with our neighbors, still pours out 3/4 of the smoke found at breathing level. Let's have a look at why household smoke, coming out just over the rooftops in densely populated areas, causes a great deal more pollution. If chimney smoke always went straight up, there'd be less of a problem, for it would mainly dissipate in the upper air, falling over a wider area. But too often the smoke is trapped by changes of air temperature under a lid which the weathermen call an inversion, and it can't escape, so that all the smoke from all our chimneys spews down round our houses and stays there, forming a thick brown murk. Only the tall buildings might have their heads in clearer air above the gloom. Over a city the size of London, this smoke haze has disastrous results. And an example is the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, where the meridian of longitude 0 was placed by British astronomers long ago, for children to walk on today. As London's chimneys poured out more and more smoke, the air grew too thick for star watching. Photographic observations were increasingly hampered. Maintenance was becoming a problem, and delicate machinery was in danger. The mirrors of telescopes were corroded, like this one, where the silver coating has largely disappeared through contact with smoke. It should have a clear reflective surface like this one. And so the astronomers had to pack up and move to the cleaner air of Hurstmonceux in Sussex, at a cost to us of more than £500,000. Have you ever thought what smoke really looks like? Well, here's some swirling about in a laboratory. In order to see what it is in smoke that makes us choke and cough when it grows thick, it's possible to collect some for looking at through an optical microscope, or through an electron microscope, which gives us a very much enlarged picture. We can see that the smoke is made up of myriads of tiny particles of carbon. That's what gets into our lungs when it hangs in the air. Here's a bottle of smoke, household smoke, the stuff that shuts out the sunlight and soils everything it touches. But before we can get rid of it, we must know what causes it. The answer is quite simple: bad combustion. Here, for instance, is a paraffin burner. If we cut off its oxygen with a piece of card, the flame goes yellow and it smokes because of bad combustion. With coal, however, there's a second problem. It won't burn unless it's hot enough. And that's why coal fires have to be kindled, and how they smoke while the coal's warming up. When the coal is really hot, the smoke is less, and for a brief spell it may be almost smoke-free. But it doesn't last. More coal has to be put on the fire, down goes the temperature, and back comes the smoke. The tragic fact is that this smoke, which goes to waste up our chimneys and soils everything it touches, is really one of the most valuable parts of coal. If some coal is ground down to make a powder like this, it is possible to distill it using this apparatus. A heated box is pushed over a tube of the powdered coal, but there's no combustion. The coal just becomes very hot, and after a few moments will give off its volatiles. Volatiles which normally go to waste as smoke and gases up your chimney. Here they come. Gases first, a bubble at a time. And here are the oils, all of them much too valuable to waste as smoke. For this coal is a chemical, packed as tightly with treasure as an Aladdin's cave. Chemists can make so much from what we've so long wasted up our chimneys as smoke. They can make things as varied as soaps and disinfectant, scent and nylons, ammonia, and 101 other things. There seems to be no end to the magic that chemists can draw from the byproducts of coal. So let the chemist have the smoke, and let us have clean air. The Clean Air Act will ensure this, for it empowers local authorities to ban smoke of any kind, not just dark smoke, from any chimneys in their areas. One of these days you may find your home in a smoke control area. And what will this mean for you? Well, it won't happen overnight. You'll be given fair warning. And you will, if necessary, be visited by a council official who will give you all the help and advice you need. One certain fact is that you'll have to say goodbye to burning any untreated coal, for there's no known way of doing so in an open grate without making smoke.
Good morning, I'm from the Public Health.
The official can advise you about what fuels you can use and the type of fittings you'll need. The new equipment will cost a little money, but the local authority will make a grant of 14 shillings in the pound to help you. And in special cases, old age pensioners for instance, the whole bill may be paid. If you want to keep your open fire, it's possible by changing from coal to one of the smokeless fuels. and to the type of grate especially designed for it. This is one, which has a back boiler too. It has 5/8 inch spaced bars and a controlled draft, both at the box and up at the throat. Now a word about the new solid smokeless fuels, which are improved cokes covered by British standards. They're not just coal with the goodness taken out, they're coal with the smoke taken out. And to prove it, many experiments have been done on both coke and coal with complicated gauges measuring heat given off, which show without a doubt that fuels such as coke give more heat, weight for weight, than coal. Methods of fire lighting come into consideration too. Nowadays, there are much better ways of lighting the fire than with sticks and paper, a messy and tiresome business. You can light it by gas, or perhaps an electric fire lighter. Both are quick and convenient. These same fire lighting methods apply also to enclosed stoves burning smokeless fuels. There's a wide choice of these that you may wish to change to, or perhaps to a fixed appliance burning gas, or oil, or electricity. Perhaps your cooking and water heating is by a coal-fired range. Well, then your replacement might be a cooker with any one of a great variety of boilers. It might be an approved combination grate with boiler, or the open fire with back boiler, plus a gas or electric cooker. With any of these, you'll know that the smoke problem no longer exists in your home. Not only will your house be cleaner, but so will the whole neighborhood. And if we look inside some of the houses that can be heated without making smoke, it's possible to see why they're so clean. This household, for instance, has changed from an open fire to a closed stove in the sitting room, and to a smokeless solid fuel boiler in the kitchen, which gives central heating to the rest of the house through radiators of the type which happily are becoming more and more difficult to notice unless you're looking for them. A new bungalow may be gas heated. This one has centrally placed warm air ducts, which are easily controlled like central heating. And for additional warmth, there's a freestanding gas fire. Another housewife may have chosen an oil-fired boiler for heating the water supply and radiators in all her rooms. And here again, you really have to look for the radiators before you notice them. Then there's electric heating, which in this house is underfloor. Boosted when necessary by a panel fire. But whether it's underfloor electric heating, oil, gas or solid fuel, smoke no longer goes up the chimney because there is no smoke. And in many new houses, there are no chimneys either. But the Clean Air Act can make sure that even where there are chimneys, no smoke can be seen. For in the first 5 years after the Act came into force, about 900,000 premises were covered by smoke control orders in the black areas of England and Wales alone, and over 55,000 premises in Scotland. The clear patches are growing in number. If we look at the maps of London, or industrial cities like Sheffield or Manchester, we can see that the present and proposed areas of clean air are wide. We're in the middle of one of the most heartening endeavors of our time. Our conscience and good sense have wakened at last to the urgent need to get rid of valleys of grimy murk like this. Industry may still have its problem, but all of us in our homes are coming to our senses now we know what we can do. Let your glance travel over the rooftops in many districts, and you won't see a single plume of smoke. familiar cloudy mists that shroud our country and the fog we cannot control. But we can control smoke pollution, and we've made a brave start. Even so, there's still much to be done. Even in the black areas, there are millions of premises which are still free to make smoke, and they must be stopped. Don't you think it's worth something to stop this happening in winter, where we all have to live amid the dirt of man-made smoke pollution? Of course, it'll cost us a few pounds on our fireplaces, but isn't clean air worth a few pounds?